between 1940 and 2004. And this is the summary of their observations. They observed that the uh, emerging infectious disease events had a non-random global pattern, and it was dominated by zoonotic diseases. That is, 60% of the emerging infectious disease events were zoonotic diseases, and around 72% of those zoonotic diseases originated in wildlife. Around 54.3% were caused by bacteria or rickettsia, including large number of drug-resistant microbes. The origins of these emerging diseases were significantly correlated with socioeconomic, environmental, and ecological factors. So this is a graphical representation of their observation. On the left-hand side, the graph is related to the agent that caused these emerging infectious disease events. And on the right-hand side, it is based on whether they were zoonotic or non-zoonotic. So like you can see in on the left-hand side, the graph shows that the black part shows that majority were because of bacteria, and it's around 54%. I just mentioned it. And the most important thing is the white part that comes in between, which represents the viruses. And we have identified, or we have realized that, emerging infectious diseases that are caused by viruses are more important as a threat, because we don't have medicine, and we need to develop a vaccine, which is actually a long-term process, and it might take 10 to 15 years to develop an effective vaccine. And for those reasons, the emerging diseases because of viruses are more important. And on the right-hand side, again, the white component shows those diseases that spill over from the wildlife, and which is the main cause of the new and emerging zoonotic diseases. So these are a few examples. We have several more examples, so I'm just mentioning a few important among them that have been in the radar over the last 2 decades. So Ebola virus disease, Nipah virus, Avian Influenza viruses, and the coronaviruses that have been in the news until the recent, even now it's in the news. And lastly, in the last week, there was one article that they found a new swine flu virus with a pandemic potential again identified in China. So this is the state of affairs. And briefly about Ebola virus disease, this first appeared in 1976 in 2 outbreaks that happened almost simultaneously in South Sudan and DRC. Since then, there have been several outbreaks, and the outbreak that occurred in 2014-16 in West Africa was the largest outbreak. Fruit bats are the reservoirs, and it is transmitted to people from wild animals, and it spreads in human population by human-to-human transmission. The case fatality rate is generally very high, 25 to 90%, average 50%, and if it is not attended, it definitely results in death. Nipah virus, we all know, especially in Kerala, in the Kerala context, we know that we have heard about the Nipah virus. This occurred in Malaysia and Singapore in 1998-99 period. 100 people died at that time from that outbreak, and the case fatality rate is around 40%. So most of the infected people, they worked in pig farming and meat production industries, and around million pigs were culled to contain the disease at that time. Fruit bats are considered as reservoirs. Later, this Nipah virus emerged in Bangladesh and India. And we know in Kerala in 2018, we had an outbreak in Kozhikode and Malappuram districts. And the avian influenza virus, it started in China in 1997. So wild aquatic birds are the natural host of avian influenza virus. There are different strains of virus, and it causes high mortality among poultry, almost 100%. The case fatality in humans is less than 70%. But the best thing that happened in the case of avian influenza is that the human to human transmission could not be established. And because of that, it didn't become a pandemic, fortunately. But they still continue to circulate among wild birds, causing infections every now and then. Now we are looking at the coronaviruses. So this belongs to the family Coronaviridae, subfamily Coronavirinae. They have 4 genera, and only 2 of them happens to infect humans. So basically alpha coronavirus and the beta coronavirus. And 7 coronavirus can infect humans. 4 cause mild respiratory infections and 3 cause severe acute respiratory syndrome. So these are the details of the coronaviruses that have infected humans. And the 2 alpha coronaviruses, they have bats as their natural host, and they cause mild respiratory tract infection. And 5 viruses belonging to beta coronavirus have been found to infect humans, out of which the first 2 you see here, they are mild respiratory tract, and the 3 that cause serious infection, we all know: SARS coronavirus, the MERS coronavirus, and the COVID-19. So we have intermediate hosts in all the 3 cases, and they result in severe acute respiratory syndrome in humans. So the SARS coronavirus, it's a highly pathogenic zoonotic disease that emerged in China in the Guangdong province in 2002. It infected over 8,000 people across 29 regions or countries. So the dark yellow regions are the places from where SARS have been reported. The case fatality rate is 10%, and mass palm civets are considered as a possible source of infection. So these are the mass palm civets. What if the zero epidemiological test revealed that, the individuals who were not only the cases, but the other individuals who were in contact with these civets, they tested positive for the antibodies. And bats were identified as the natural reservoirs. These civets acted as an intermediate host where the virus adapted to infect humans. And then the next coronavirus infection, the severe version, came 10 years after SARS in 2012. It emerged in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, infecting 2,465 people. The case fatality rate was around 35% in this case, and it was transmitted through dromedary camels or camel products. Again, bats are the natural reservoirs here, and the seroepidemiology studies also found that actually the passage of these viruses from bats to camels happened more than 30 years ago. And now we have the COVID-19. So this is generally the course of event that happened. You all must be aware, on 31st of December 2019, Wuhan Municipal Health Commission in Wuhan City, China, they reported a cluster of 27 pneumonia cases of unknown etiology. On 7th of January, It was identified as a novel coronavirus on the 9th of January. China CDC reported that this particular virus caused 11 of the 15 pneumonia cases. On the 10th of January, the first genome sequence of this virus was publicly made available. And on 13th, the first case was detected outside China in Thailand. On 21st of January 2020, the Chinese authorities confirmed that human-to-human transmission is happening for this virus. And on 30th of January, WHO declared COVID-19 as a public health event of international concern. So this and the rest of the story we all know. So COVID-19 is caused by SARS coronavirus 2. That's also zoonotic in origin, probably originated in bats. An intermediate host is yet to be identified, but all the seroepidemiological studies so far point the fingers to pangolins. So these are the Malayan pangolins, and they found that almost around the same time that this outbreak happened in Wuhan, the Chinese Wildlife Rescue Organization, they examined 2 dead Malayan pangolins. And hello. Yeah. So they identified SARS coronavirus in these it's a coronavirus in pangolin, and the pangolin coronavirus it was 91% identical to the SARS coronavirus 2 causing COVID in humans at the whole genome level. And the bat coronavirus was 96% identical to SARS coronavirus. And also we have a growing evidence of anthropogenic infections and bat. Means the infections were transmitted from humans to animals and again back to humans. So these animals have the potential to be the reservoirs and therefore needs to be monitored. Why? Because the spike protein on the virus that attaches to the host cell using a protein, and that protein is found in many different species, I already mentioned the possibility of anthropogenic infection and back to humans because there was a similar incidence in European mink farms in April 2020. And a few cases have been reported where domestic dogs and cats, farmed wildlife such as mink and pigs, rodents have been infected and therefore are all potential reservoirs. And also because of the fact that virus transmission among animals could become irreversible if left unchecked. And because of these different factors, we need a very strong animal surveillance for the control of this kind of emerging zoonotic diseases. So what are the challenges that we face at the face of an emerging zoonotic disease? They pose an very emerging zoonotic viruses. They pose an increased risk compared to other emerging zoonotic diseases because of the different reasons that I mentioned earlier. And there are gaps in the ability to manage emerging zoonotic diseases. How do we manage when there is an outbreak in a country or in our state? When there is an outbreak, how do we manage that kind of a situation? And we don't have sufficient data in the livestock sector. There are no prevalent studies for zoonotic diseases, especially in the developing countries. And there is not much investment in research on animal-human interface related problems. So these are some of the challenges we face in the detection and management of emerging zoonotic diseases. So what are the future perspectives? So let us think about what we can do as a veterinarian in the control and management of emerging zoonotic diseases. The first and foremost thing I always felt is that we need to strengthen the livestock sector. Wherever you go, developing countries, they all have the same pattern. The livestock sector is much less developed than the health sector. So we know that surveillance systems are the backbone of managing diseases, and we need to strengthen the surveillance systems. We need to strengthen the laboratory capacities, especially for diagnosing these priority animal diseases. We need to build the capacity of the personnel working in the sector to detect and manage or do the surveillance of these kind of emerging situations. We need to have facilities for sentinel surveillance among animals in priority regions. We need to have a well-established information technology to, to share information between the professionals and between the sectors. So these are some of the areas that we need to strengthen in the livestock sector. We need to do a risk assessment. For that, what we need to do is to identify, assess, and map the risks that associated with emerging zoonotic diseases across sectors. So the two different stages in the emergence is, one is the spillover. Spillover happens either from animal to animal, from a wildlife to a domestic animal, or from animal to human interface. So the next stage in the emerging zoonotic disease is the amplification, the multiplication of the virus inside the animal or a human. So we need to find what are the risk factors that cause this spillover. What are the risk factors associated with the amplification of the virus in animals or humans? So are there some behavioral factors that causing this spillover? Are there some biosecurity issues associated? So all kind of all factors, we need to bring in all the factors that are causing to the spillover. So only when we know and map these risks, then we can take a strategic action to solve these problems. We need to find what is the trend in the livestock population and what is the prevalence of the zoonotic diseases, and then we can identify the strategic solutions. So for which we need to have strategy and policies at the national level. Firstly, we need a political commitment. We need a national leadership or a leadership at the state who is politically committed to this cause. And we need budget allocation specifically meant for the different things that have been mentioning just before this, how to strengthen, to do the research or do whatever to strengthen the livestock sector, or all these activities, we need a budgetary allocation. We need to have guidelines and policies in place. For example, we need to promote organized slaughterhouses and avoid wet markets. Wet market life, wet market is one another important reason. But we cannot all of a sudden go and ban the wet markets because these are very complicated issues, and it is related to the income of people, it is related to the culture of the people, and social cohesion. So many factors come in, and therefore we need a proper mechanism to reduce the wet markets and bring in organized slaughterhouses. We need to license the pet animals. We need to have laws to prevent different animal species mixing. We need to limit livestock densities, and we need to have strategies and policies that provide high standards of veterinary care. And scientists are even saying that we need to look at other alternate options like shifting to plant-based foods. And as we all know, One Health approach is one of the most important, has a very important role in the control of emerging zoonotic diseases, which is a multi-sectoral collaboration uh, so that we address the zoonotic diseases much before they become a public health threat. So who all come together? The animal health, public health, environmental and conservation communities, they all come together. We need to develop national guidelines and framework how these One Health approach is going to be implemented. Top to bottom collaboration, horizontal collaborations, we need to have guidelines and framework in place. And we need data sharing mechanisms on a real-time basis, which help better exchange of data between the sectors. Also, we need to train cadres of professionals in different sectors for supporting, promoting, and implementing One Health approach. So these are some of the things I thought we should be doing as a veterinarian in the control of emerging zoonotic diseases. And I just wanted to give a brief of the global YWAM project that is already happening. So this project is a 10-year scientific collaborative initiative to discover the unknown zoonotic viral threats and stop future pandemic threats. So basically, this aims to build capacities. One of the important things that we need to do to respond and prevent spillover from animals, and they hope that they will be able to discover at least 500,000 animal viruses capable of being transmitted to people. And also they aim to foster solutions for prevention and development of vaccines, pharmaceuticals, and countermeasures. And I also wanted to mention that the US government is investing hugely in a stop spillover project with all of these components, factoring in all of these components and focusing on the priority regions and the priority viruses. So this is all I wanted to present before you all. I hope that this gave an idea of the recent zoonotic diseases and what we need to do to prevent such emerging zoonotic diseases. Thank you.